we need to think about what we want for this ICM. So, and I think that we need more strategic approach and a more top-level approach within our organization.
Before we started, we were talking about your project in Setúbal, and you said me that you have a link to the local authorities, not only here but in China as well.
Yes.
So you have this experience.
Yes, we had a special project. We have a special project with China called Lisbon Workshop. They installed here a lab in Industry 4.0 in the strategy of China. So invested around 600,000 euros. But it was a joint project between national government, the Tianjin government, and of course one university and one vocational college that in China they have both VET and higher education. Since the very beginning, that's why it's important to study these countries and the partners. It's fundamental to involve our municipality in the project. So I've been in China in the last week, and we know really what is the relevance to join all the partners, because within this project we want to change and to increase our more professional approach in education and training, in the linking with the firms locally, and of course to have a more integrated approach between firms, institutions, in the case of Polytechnic of Setúbal, and the municipality as well. We want to make this project as a regional project using a lab, but of course to have good projects for firms, and of course to attract investment, for instance, from Chinese firms to Setúbal. So I think we should look as in an overall dimension and not only look to the mobility to attract students. Of course, this is important, but I think we should add other layers in this internationalization process.
Okay, thank you. Of course.
China. China has a long period strategy, and as you know, China puts education at the center of the development of the country. And we don't have this in our countries. So I think it is good to have more funds for VET and more cooperation between VET and university. This is something we should do, surely, but there should be more attention by the government to education.
I asked, and I'd like your answer as well to this question. How comfortable do you feel with what we reached so far with Erasmus? How comfortable do you feel with what we reached so far with Erasmus Plus?
Well, we are very satisfied with the results of our Erasmus. We have more than 500 Erasmus projects and 27 Erasmus ICM. And we are very satisfied. First of all, employability. We have people working only on the basis of Erasmus projects. So we are young people working. We have an office dedicated to Erasmus, which is called a project. So we have more than 20 people working and living on Erasmus projects. And so we are completely satisfied, yes. I think. And these Erasmus projects have been a motor to our international project, internationalization, I could say. Not only in Europe, but also in other countries.
Nicola, you want to add your opinion, your personal opinion?
Yeah, me too. I'm very satisfied, but not totally. That's why there is a future anyway. Because since the previous program, Erasmus made great improvements, and in our institution, for example, there was only me, and now we are 4 dedicated staff full-time for internationalization and Erasmus, which for an institution of 90 employees, you can get the percentage is a good result. But for the future, we have big expectations, because I heard before speaking about involving companies, stakeholders. We are in company every day. Of these 90 persons, there are 3-4 persons every day in the companies for all the working days of the year. And you cannot get them on board if you are not aligned with their needs and with their strategies. So actually, either in university with ECM, you can also with the research of the big industries you cooperate with, because I guess the scale is this, no? University is big and you work with big industries, with research centers and so on. So working abroad outside Europe facilitates the involvement of companies. For VET, no. So we expect that the future VET program in 2021-27 open this possibility for us, because the small, medium enterprises that work with the VET centers have half of their income coming from Asia, Africa, Latin America, Northern America, Australia, from several international countries. And if we do not give them the opportunity to work with those countries as well, we are a step behind. And so for the internationalization of vocational education system, to work together, higher education is essential for me. There is no other option, because is the new calls, 28th of May, there is the first pilot action of VET outside Europe, okay? Who does have such partnership? I mean, in the Balkans areas, yes, there are only 3 countries to be included in the project, but in Africa, 18 countries, only universities have such networks, so vocational institutions alone won't be prepared for such jump in quality and in complexity of a cooperation outside Europe. So LLP, Erasmus, let's see the future, but I look forward for an enlargement of the scenario, and also for the stronger cooperation with universities, for sure.
Okay, more money, more cooperation. There are 2 goals to be achieved. More goals to be achieved in next times. Do you suggest? Can you suggest the next steps to be done in this internationalization and mobility strategy? If anyone in the audience, okay, if you please.
My name is Werner Fuhrmann. I'm coming from a VET institution from Germany. I want to add one more aspect on the impact of the Erasmus Plus. We're mostly talking a lot of mobility, but we also have the strategic partnerships. So that when we use in our VET institution the strategic partnership on the last Erasmus Plus to develop a tool for a concrete problem we had in Germany in the last 3 years. So from 2015 on, we have to integrate 1.5 million refugees and migrants into the labor market. And you need new approaches to do, and then we use an Erasmus Plus for the additional development of new tools made from all partners in Europe to solve a better qualification and a better training for refugees by development, for example, a better quick scan. This quick scan is to recognize the competences of refugees, because you don't have any qualifications, they have any documents. The only thing they have is competences, and this is more the all-over discussion in the process, also ECVET and other process. It's competence-based. The most thing is how we can use these competences for new qualifications, or also for the integration of the labor market. And this means what, I don't know the name, he said, the internationalization of the VET institutes is not only the internationalization with partnerships and working all over Europe, is the internationalization of your institution, because you have to change your teaching activity. You have to have more intercultural competences of your teachers, trainers, and also of the institutions. If you have to work with people who are not coming from your country or regional country, coming from other European or other Asian or African states. And this is, I think, is another very important aspect of the internationalization. And I hope, of course, next year we can try to do one more project to make maybe another approach. Maybe then 2 or 3 years. Of course, everybody need a little bit more funding. But I think it was very important, and it's also a very important aspect of the Erasmus Plus.
And so, when you mentioned this new approach, can it be done within the Erasmus framework?
Yes, of course, the Erasmus Plus strategic partnership. So we are lucky to hear that we have enough money for in the future, but still now, if you have an aim with a good impact, the impact of the project, it means it will be give impact on a better qualification or a better situation for these target groups. I think we will do this more.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Okay, here in front, please. Here in the first row. Can we have the microphone here, please? Okay, thank you, Anna. Okay.
Thank you. Just to add some information to some points that were made. About Erasmus, you know that Erasmus is considered one of the most successful programs in Europe, if not the most successful program in Europe. As Professor Dominguinhos mentioned, Erasmus has been contributing to having a more integrated European society and union. However, and this is common to the comments on the funding of the program, we need to keep in mind that Erasmus is a drop in the ocean. So we now, in the period from 14 to 2020, we have about less than 15 billion euros for the program, for the 30 countries in the program, and for the 7 years. So this is really a drop in the ocean. Now there is this proposal either to double this amount or even having the triple of this amount for the next period. It will all depend on the European Parliament. Again, as Professor Dominguinhos mentioned, the European Parliament we will have. If we have an European Parliament that is in favor of European integration, the majority, I'm sure they will vote for having the triple of the budget in the next period. If we don't have a European Parliament in favor of European integration, we will, if we end up with the same amount of money we had now for this period, we will be very lucky. Anyway, I don't think funding is the main issue. It's important, but it's not the main issue. It has been increasing for VET, so higher education usually took 50% of the funding, but that is decreasing, the proportion of the funding that goes for higher education. And the sector that is benefiting the most and increasing the most is VET. Anyway, I look at this money of Erasmus as seed funding. So it's seed funding. It's not supposed to fund all the mobility. It's not supposed to fund all the internationalization of our education and training institutions. It's just to give the incentive to jumpstart the system, the internationalization. Some numbers. At European level, you probably know, there are less than 4% of the young people that benefit from Erasmus funding. If the money doubles, we expect this number more than double. In Portugal, we have, on higher education, we have about 3% of higher education students benefit from Erasmus funding. And in VET is 2%, so is even less than that. So Erasmus is seed funding, which leads us to one of the components of the internationalization strategy that you mentioned, and this is synergies with other programs. So we really need to work with other funding and other sources of funding to increase the internationalization in education and training and the quality of the internationalization. Thank you.
I think you wanted to ask a question as well. Okay.
My name is Thomas Stens. I'm from an organization in Stockholm region in Sweden. And we work, like the gentleman from Germany here, work with the main issue that we need to integrate a lot of new citizens into our work life in a short period of time to make them taxpayers instead of costing money, so to speak. We make programs together with enterprises and mix language learning with vocational training, together with the companies. And we find it very interesting that we are now starting to talk about mixing Erasmus Plus with European Social Fund, because that's one good possibility to make bigger projects and find more fundings for it. So I'm very interested to hear some more about these plans and how we could link it to vocational training for immigrants and maybe find some common solutions in this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like now to challenge you for a dreaming exercise. Suppose we are. This is there will be other meetings like this one we mentioned in the beginning. What would you like to see that was accomplished, suppose in 1 year? What would be the biggest? Okay, we reached this or that.
Looking for this kind of meetings to have more students and other people outside the national agencies and the higher education. I think this is one of challenges that we should accomplish. Let me say, normally we organize international weeks and everything. I think we have to put more, if you want to diversify, we have to listen the different people. Otherwise, we are talking the round circle. I think this is when you look to the immigrants and other people, and if you look to the millennials, we are designing in several cases programs without listening this kind of people. I think we need to have better policy measures. We need to listen more. It's very difficult sometimes because it challenges and make it out of our comfort zones. But I think we need to listen more to define better policies. So a desire is to have more diversification in the programs and other people. As in Portugal, we have a huge challenge. We have a lack of long life learning programs in Portugal. We are, I will say, the worst country across Europe to invest in long life learning. So we need more of course, to deal with the new challenges that are ahead of us in the new technologies.
You are touching the communication issue, which for me is very...
Of course, it's not only the communication, it's the involvement. It's more than communication.
Yes, in my opinion, communicate
you are a journalist.
Yes, we only communicate if we have feedback. Otherwise, we are only informing. But we need to communicate to establish the link. Oh, anyway, but this is not for... You are not here to listen to me. What would you like to check that it was okay in a year or so?
I agree with colleague from Setúbal. I think we should be more able to promote impact of Erasmus. Impact, because we're still thinking about the organization, how to plan, but then it's finished, we finish mobility, and what then? We should remember that Erasmus Programme, it's also a tool for raising the prestige of our institution, prestige of our regions, of our countries, and of Europe. Mm-hmm. So after 1 year, I think we will be better in this area. Thank you.
And I would desire that what she said will be listened by the governments. You mentioned also that now it's a time to go for the institutional level. We have so many procedures, we have so many good examples of really good operation between countries and cooperation that someone should finally listen to us, I mean the governments especially, using that as an example of a great influence and a great base for the internationalization itself. And another dream is that we will not be too much, let's say, proud of what we've done, but we will rather find out our weaknesses. I mean, also in terms of language, English language for our staff members, which I really wished that it could improve in 1 year time, that we could offer more English-based courses, because without that, we cannot find the first platform for cooperation and for integration in the program. So this is my desire, and I would like to really have a result like this.
Thank you. Annabelle.
Well, I wished that besides mobility, that we are all aware that the numbers, the results of the partnerships, the strategic partnerships between stakeholders could be more visible to everyone. Sometimes when we want to know what those partnerships are about, we don't see many times their results. So there should be some place in the cloud to put all those results to other stakeholders to see and to know, to share the results from their partnerships.
Okay.
I have three
dreams
expectations in 1 year. First is to have a new program after the election, so I want to check that.
Okay.
Then at least two proposals, the serious things. One is unified common education and training Italian policy on internationalization, looking at the fragmentation we have in the system through the Ministry National Agency to have a proposal, because I know 1 year is not enough, but of a common education and training internationalization strategy and not regional strategies, because that's what there is now for VET, for example. And the second is maybe the same thing at European level, no? So a proposal, because now we have modernization agenda for higher education, we have several documents of reference for higher education, but also to have a common proposal to identify Europe as an attractive hub for vocational education, training, university, not just at sectorial levels, no?
I agree what has been said so far. So I would only say impact, so more cooperation with the stakeholders and also with the municipality. And the fact that the Erasmus funds are seed funding pushes us to look for more cooperation with the stakeholders, with the municipality, for instance, and the local government, regional government, national government. And for instance, the impact of our internationalization is also an impact on the composition of the society of the city. So the city should also help us in promoting international. So we are looking for scholarship for students, for instance, from the region. There are already some scholarship from the region, but also the municipality. This year, of course, we also had the cut of the Erasmus funding for our scholarship. So we decided to keep the same number of mobility, and we co-funded with external funds, but also with other funds, the scholarship for the students, to send the students abroad. And also we can ask to our partners abroad to provide more funds for their students. And so we can co-fund this. And the third, more cooperation with that university. This is something we should do.
Thank you very much for sharing these dreams. And I think we are done with this roundtable, and I hope it has been useful and several ideas that we will now digest.
Thank you, Vasco. Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much to these experts. For all these different and enriching perspectives on the internationalization of both higher education and VET institutions.